Yeah, so let's get into it. So, hello, thank you all for being here. My name is Tyler Barzakowski. I am currently a junior at Alden High School. At the moment, I am taking 2 technology classes run by Mr. Turton. Through these classes, I was given the opportunity to host a panel discussion. This topic really stuck out to me as I have a lot of interest in international trends and affairs. After graduation, I plan on attending Geneseo in the International Relations program and minoring in either economics or Spanish. Of course, these plans are subject to change, but I feel they are strongly connected to what we are going to talk about today. Now that you heard a little bit about me, I'll proceed to call on each panelist where you will get the chance to share the name of your company and what your job position is there. I would also like to remind the panelists to try and keep your answers to 30 seconds in order to get through all the questions. So without further ado, let us start with Mr. Drew G.
Yes, it's Mike Druding, and I'm with Integer.
Oh, I was gonna call on everyone, but yeah, you can start. That's fine. We can go to Mr. Drew G then.
Hello, everyone. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yep.
Yes. Well, excellent. Well, my name is Andrew, and I'm actually the owner and developer of a company called Loco, Pecunia. For those that speak Spanish, mi negocio nombre es Loco Pecunia Inc., and I'm currently bringing digital currency to Central and South America.
Sounds great. Let's move to Mr. Omar El Nasser from Integer.
Okay, my name is Omar El Nasser. I work for Integer. If you're familiar with the Western New York area, it was formerly Great Batch Company. My supervisor, Mike Druding, is actually on the call today. So I want to say that I do a lot, but I'm a program manager. I typically get assigned larger projects with the company, new product development, transfers, facility shutdowns, integration type projects. And I started out my career going to school with a few other panelists there at the University of Buffalo for industrial engineering, and my way into program management.
Very cool. Let's move to Miss Michele Koppman from Elbit Systems of America.
All right. My name is Michele Koppman, so I'm working as a director of manufacturing in Elbit Systems. We're a defense and military company, and I have all of operations at my site, and including manufacturing engineering and all the test engineers.
Nice. How about Mr. Andrew Wolf from Wolf Associates and Deluxe Laser Works?
I didn't see him on the call yet, Tyler.
No? I thought I saw him in the... No? Okay. Then we can go to Mr. Brandon Hoffman from Nissha Medical Technologies.
Yes, my name is Brandon Hoffman. I work for a company called Nissha Medical Technologies. In the Buffalo area, there's a legacy company called Graphic Controls that it was a few iterations ago. Now we're known as Nissha Medical Technologies. We have a parent out of Japan. And my role is Senior Vice President, General Manager of our division that does a service offering of design and manufacturing services for medtech companies.
Okay. Let's move to Miss Meg Lanza from Bosch USA.
Hey everyone, it's Meg Lanza. I am working for Bosch in Charleston, South Carolina. I've been here for about 20 years. Did a couple of years assignment in Nuremberg, Germany, and I have an industrial engineering background. Also went to school with a bunch of these guys, including Mr. Turton. So glad to be here. And my current role is the director of what we call technical functions. It's got a lot of different things involved in it: process engineering and sample production and the facilities management, the industrial engineering team. So lots of different things going on.
Okay. Let's go to Miss Kathy Santiago, who currently works in the Alden School District.
So my name is Kathy Santiago. I actually am the curriculum and instruction teacher leader at Alden for world languages and social studies. But I answered the call for Tyler because, like Tyler, my degree is international relations from Canisius College. And when I graduated, I started working right away at Columbus McKinnon in the Buffalo area and worked with them in their international division from 1988 until 1990. And I moved to Puerto Rico, and I worked in international business in Puerto Rico from 1995 to 1997. And I came back to Buffalo in 1995 and worked in international business for Fisher Price until I had my son, and then I decided to go into teaching. So hopefully I am now teaching the future international relations people like Tyler.
Okay. Let's move to Pilar from EF Tours.
Hi, I'm Pilar. I'm a tour director for EF, but also for other companies. I only work with companies that are involved in traveling as a way to learn cultural tourism. So that's my main activity nowadays. I have a degree in sociology, and I had the pleasure to travel with Alden. It was my last tour before we started confinement. So I'm really, projected into the international world, especially to American and Canadian travelers.
Cool. All right, let's go to Mr. Bernardo from EF Tours.
Yes, hello. Hi, my name is Bernardo Corazan. I'm a tour director, same as Pilar. I work with EF and with other companies as well. Our job mainly is to make sure that everything runs smoothly and perfectly when we have people coming from abroad to travel into Europe. And it's a pleasure that you invited me. And also, besides this job, I thought it was interesting to participate as well because my very first job that lasted from 1994 until 2004 was in a company in Valencia, where I come from, and I was the export manager of a company. So I traveled the whole world, and it's international business as well. So I have a lot of experience in that as well.
Nice. Let's go to Mr. Rajkumar Selvaraj from Siemens.
I am Raj Selvaraj. I'm a senior energy engineer with Siemens Industry Incorporated in Buffalo. Been there for 17 years now, and we did an energy project for Alden Central Schools about a year ago.
Cool. Next, we'll go to Mr. William Andrews from Monofrax.
How you doing? I'm Bill Andrews. I'm the president and GM at Monofrax, the CEO. My career has been turnaround, so I've only been there about 4 years. We make a type of ceramics that's a refractory that lines the inside of furnaces for manufacturing glass and steel. I've done vice president of engineering, vice president of R&D, vice president of operations. I've been around the world working with our partners and customers on turnarounds and on growth. And I'm honored and humbled to be here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Miss Kelly Aldinger from Elba Elementary School. Is Miss Aldinger here? Doesn't look like it.
No.
Okay. Let's try Miss Emily Rautenstrauch from Microsoft.
Hi, everyone. My name's Emily. I'm a community development specialist for Microsoft's here in Buffalo. I oversee all the programs and events that we do in the Microsoft store here, as well as getting out into the community and now overseeing our virtual events. Microsoft stores do have locations all across the U.S., Canada, Sydney, and London now. So I do work with a lot of individuals all across the world, and actually last summer had the opportunity to spend the summer in London helping at their new flagship location with some of their newer employees there.
Okay, thank you. I believe that's everyone. So if we want to get into the first question for all the panelists, and remember, we want to keep the responses to 30 seconds so we can get to all the questions. So I was going to do the first question. Please tell us a little bit about your path to your current position and why you decided to take valuable time out of your day to share career-related advice with high school students, which is very similar to the first one. So if anyone wants to chime in, not everyone has to answer this one, but if they just want to expand a little bit on it.
Sure, Tyler, I'll help you out. I'm here because my cousin is the professor, and I'm very interested in using Microsoft Teams. Down in Central South America, we use a lot of social media and connecting video chats that you guys probably don't use in the States. Don't use to see in this process. See how we can use the bridge gap between North America and Central and South America.
Okay, cool. Why don't we go to the second question then, if no one else wants to do that one? So we'll go to, how does new technology impact international business and relationships?
Well, I think the best example that we have is what we're doing right now. I mean, this is the best example we can have about, being able to communicate with people anywhere in the world, with many people, and have decisions and making decisions right in the spot. This was unthinkable years ago. This is, for me, the best example and the best way to work with technology.
And I would have to agree with you. And I'm thinking not only from Integer being a global business and having the technology to communicate to all of our sites around the world, but also our worldwide customers. But also staying in touch with, in my case, I have an international team located down in Uruguay and Tijuana, as well as here in the States, with customers in Europe, in Asia, and Australia. And we're using video conferencing, cell phone technologies, other forms of communication to stay in touch on a regular basis.
As a language teacher, I would just say the ability to use technology and see someone's face while you're talking to them speaks volumes compared to sending an email. It's just the ability to express and show things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise.
I think I would add to that too that, and I know COVID's a later question on this list here, but prior to COVID, I'd had the same experience as the rest of the group operating internationally. We have operations in all time zones, all the way over to Japan. And to be able to communicate face to face, certainly in some cultures, particularly the Japanese culture, is very important. Language is one thing, but the understanding of the culture is very important as well. And doing that strictly over the phone or via email is difficult at times.
Okay, cool. I just want to remind everyone that if they're not talking, to mute your mic so that we don't get any interference, because there's a lot of we're connecting from all around, like almost all around the world, so it's just a little bit of static. But we'll go to the next question. What languages besides English do you think would be beneficial for a global career?
This is Meg. I can give some input on that. I thought that was a really interesting question, and I don't know that there's one answer, that there's a best language to learn. I think it depends a lot on where you're working and what the environment is like. So I work for a company that's based out of Germany, and I lived in Germany for a couple of years. I've traveled to Germany a lot, and knowing some German and being able to speak the language has helped me a great deal. It really helps you gain trust with people, and it helps you to establish relationships much more quickly if you're speaking the same language. And if you don't always expect them to be able to speak English to you, but you're making an effort to try to communicate in their language. So for me, it was German that was very important, but I think that it would, any language that you can learn at a young age allows you to kind of get the feel for how languages are built, and it will help you in the future. I think once you learn one language, you can start to learn other languages and kind of dissect them and take them apart, and it helps you in the future. So that's something I would definitely recommend to anyone who's young and starting their career and they want to go international. start to learn a language, just pick one that feels and get started, and then later on find the one that you need.
I agree with Meg because I growing up in New York, close to Canada, it was more instilled in us to learn French. But then I left and immediately worked in Mexico. But it helped me to learn Spanish faster. No, I had 4 years of French Academy, but now I work for a company that's Hebrew, so it's right back to trying to learn another language. So definitely agree that you get one language, and then just wherever you end up going, trying to learn some of the language.
I would add on to that, like I'm originally from India, a South Indian dialect of Tamil, and our official language is English. So if you're going to work in India, you can still manage with English and not know much of the local languages because we got tons of language in our country. But once you have a better handle on what geographical region you want to go to, maybe make a trip there, take a vacation there, or be an exchange student for a semester, and you'll get to understand how they behave with your languages there, whether English is important to them or if you would need to learn the local languages. And it'll give you a much better idea as to what you want to do.
I know that we're going to talk about it later, but I think that when you speak another language, as you've all already said, it's not about what language, it's about the language of where you're doing business. And to the local people that you're working with, it says volumes to them that you're doing business with them in their language. And it's not just about the language, it's about having the cultural competence to understand how the language works within that culture.
I was going to echo what you just said, and that is my experience has been that knowing some of the language and attempting to speak in the language is one thing, but truly understanding the culture and reflecting the culture and learning and embracing the culture is almost, in my mind, more important and demonstrating even more respect for others in other cultures and international assignments.
Yeah, I was going to say actually that it is true. I mean, I see it from the Spanish side, as in, for us, the main language we have to learn is English, of course. And I completely agree about the cultural thing. I remember when I used to work in the business in the export department I used to work for. I mean, of course, I used to deal with English. That was helpful to go anywhere in the world, basically. But in the end, what really was the point was to get to the country and get to know the country through the distributors or whatever, and get to know really the reality of the countries, because otherwise you could be very successful in one country with one reason, and then a completely different reason would make you successful in another country. So it's very important that you go and see with your own eyes.
But talking to students, I like to stress, and being American, of course, you have English, so you have the world for you. That, to try any language is just a good effort for your mind. So doesn't mind which language. This idea that sometimes let's go to Arab or Chinese or Spanish because those are the big languages is, don't be misled by that, because maybe talking a language that is not so important might be important because you are the only person available in that language. So the world offers many opportunities in the hidden spots of the earth.
And Tyler, if I may add to that, I think the panelists can agree. One language pertaining to technology that all industries use is computer language. So I know we practiced a bit yesterday, but I would emphasize, especially with your generation, learning, again, either C++ or JavaScript. These are computer languages that can be used in any industry.
100% agree. We're constantly looking for people who can program, who can code. We need people like that all the time. In addition to engineering and operational skills, we need people with computer science skills as well, and it's becoming more and more important every day. So if you can code, or if you can learn to code, again, I don't know that the language is so important, but learning those skills is really critical right now.
Tyler, you're on mute.
Okay, there we go. Okay. I said thanks and everything for that question, but I think we're moving on to the next one. So, in what ways has COVID-19 impacted your company and its employees?
Well,
Adam,
Can you repeat the
sorry.
question, please?
Go ahead.
There was a connection problem and I couldn't understand your question, please.
Oh, it was in what ways has COVID-19 impacted your company and its employees?
Well, in the case of well, in the case of tourism business, it has impacted a lot. So you can imagine that confinement and lockdown of countries has stopped to the tourism totally. It has affected employees and freelancers. That's a big part of the company, like myself or Bernardo, working as tour directors for those companies. So the impact is very important, and not in terms only of what happens now, but how tourism, how traveling is going to may change in the future, even after COVID, because we are aware of many issues about safety and healthy issues, even more than before.
I would say besides the obvious issues of keeping your employees healthy, that all companies have to deal with right now, we've had to really take a look at how we do business. We're a service provider, and many areas of our company interface with customers. We're very used to going to see the customer on-site meetings, either our site or the customer site, joint development meetings, joint manufacturing planning meetings. These are all things that, as of the end of March, just stopped overnight. We weren't doing anymore. So we've accelerated some of our digital transformation planning that we already had in the works, but really pulled it ahead to take some cues from other industries like the real estate industry. Real estate industry's been pushing towards online now for some time, and if you spend any time online looking for real estate, residential or commercial, there's virtual tours, there's online hosting, there's all types of things that is now done online. So I would say for our company, that's been a very quick shift we've had to do in the last month.
I can jump in real fast too. I work at the Microsoft store, and obviously all retail has been closed, but Microsoft pivoted really quickly and took the employees that they had and the skills they had out of the retail environment, and within a week created all of these new priorities and jobs that we could all do from home remotely, whether it was doing training on technology like Teams, which has just been skyrocketing throughout of all this, because they know the retail employees had those skills to do it. Or, we have our technicians on the phone doing over the phone support. So they definitely had to pivot quickly. And I think this has made Microsoft realize that there's a lot of things that our retail employees can do from home. And even once we get back into the store, I think it's going to be a very hybrid model. We're not just going to go back to the way things were. We're going to kind of go back, but I think we're going to take the skills and the new things that all of our employees are doing and really be able to offer a lot more virtually. And they learned that in a very quick time because we were forced to. I think if, maybe this didn't happen, we would have got there eventually, but it kind of forced everyone. I think like Brandon was just saying, to like transform digitally a lot faster than companies were probably planning on doing it.
I 100% agree with you. We had similar where we had to work remote right away. So you had to relook at how to manage your employees and keep everybody engaged. So a lot of using like Teams or using Zoom meetings or using different things to keep everybody engaged and keep everybody seeing each other, not just on emails, made a huge difference. But it did change the way we've looked at in the future, how many people need to be in the plant every day and how many people could work remotely more. We've seen better morale. People seem to be a little less stressed out, having the option to be home, but just to have that combination, we're looking at how do you do that differently? And I believe it's because COVID kind of forced us into doing it quickly.
Well, it's really this opens for opportunities. You know, smart companies are going to grow on this, companies on that. No, mute.
Okay. I click on it twice and then it mutes and unmutes me. All right. If no one else wants to jump in there, we'll move on to the next question. What importance does cultural diversity have on your career?
I think I wouldn't mind talking about cultural diversity if that's all right. I think everybody knows that, you know, a culturally diverse company or group is going to bring more creativity and innovation. But I specifically want to talk to Alden students, because I grew up in a similar town to Alden. I grew up in a little town in Western New York, Fredonia. Meg was right next door in Dunkirk, small town. And one thing that I think is similar to how I grew up in Alden is it's just not very culturally diverse, right? So how do you understand and comprehend cultural diversity when you're just not surrounded by it? So one thing I think that's important, and I always tell people, the first thing to understand culturally complex society is to learn about yourself, understand yourself. What's your history? And once you kind of understand your culture and your diversity and who you are, okay, you'll understand what others may be thinking about you and what biases they may have about you. And that helps you understand how to look at others. And, the second thing after you kind of understand yourself is take the time to learn about other cultures. Okay. So I'm a mix of nationalities, and I grew up in a small town with very little diversity, and I never realized that I was any different than anyone else until I was a senior in high school. But so what I'm saying to young people is understand yourself and take the time to learn about other cultures. Currently in my job, I have to work with, we have a facility where there's a large Hmong population, a large Somali population, and knowing their cultures, what they do, what's important to them. I'm working on projects with Korean vendors and Japanese vendors, and comparing their proposals to proposals from domestic vendors. And I have to understand, do I have a bias because I understand these guys, the domestic vendor a little better when they talk, and there's a language barrier. Do I have a bias? So I have to understand the culture, understand people, but it really starts with knowing yourself and understanding yourself. So that would be my best advice to young people: is take a look at yourself, and that will help you learn about others.
And we can say,
yes,
travel all over the world to learn about the others. That's the purpose of EF, and I think this opens the mind, and that's the reason that teachers choose a company to travel with. Let me tell you just something personal. I was raised in a very Catholic, traditional, Spain under the dictator of Franco, and I earned a scholarship to do my high school year in the United States in 1971. And it was the first time I was in a big high school with mixed races, mixed social, classes. And it was the year that busing started in Dallas, Texas. And I was shocked by that. And at the same time, I said, the world is not only my world, but this made me appreciate my own world a lot and ask me questions and recognize the values of where I come from, but also opened me to other people that I found it was great. And I always tell the students when I travel with them, through the questions of foreigners, you learn much more about your local experience. When they visit my country and they ask me questions that I take for granted, and then I realize that my world is not so, for me is obvious, but it's not obvious to others. Through the exchange of asking questions, I always say there is no silly question. Anything that you consider is different helps you to understand the others and yourself.
Yeah,
I think it's, yeah,
Yes,
I was just going to say,
I completely agree. Sorry.
I was going to say, I think it's important, and all the way from the middle school to the jobs that I've done internationally, it's important to understand that culture goes beyond foods and festivals and music. Culture is ingrained to that lifestyle of the person. It speaks to their history, their geography, down to the transportation they use, and just so much goes into someone's culture that it's important to know and understand it, but also experience it with them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I agree totally. And as Pilar said, the best thing for you is try to travel as much as you can and try to learn, because besides your study, nothing is going to teach you more than traveling and learning other cultures. And also, especially for international business and for international relations, there is nothing better than knowing a little bit and make an effort of the person you have in front of you. You know, if you go wherever, try to learn about themselves or travel and learn. And if you receive people from abroad, it's always nice because you will know exactly how to deal with them much better if you know about their culture and respect them, of course.
Yeah, I would add, Tyler, too, your generation should be aware of the geopolitical environment we're in. I won't get political, but it's certainly a different world than, you know, when your teacher, Mr. Turton, grew up 100 years ago or whenever he grew up. It's a different world. It's a global economy, whether you like it or not. It is. I think everybody would agree that it's a global economy, and nationalism and populist views are on the rise. And how are we going to manage the world economy going forward? You know, everything I think everybody talked about culturally is important, and you know, take a look at what's going on geopolitically, give you an idea of what things will look like when you get into university, you get into the workforce.
Sounds
And
great.
I think agreed with that we are in a global economy for sure. And when you get into your career, I think what you originally asked was how important is cultural diversity? It's so important because basically your understanding of that is going to be what allows you to build relationships with other people and make a connection with other people. And if you don't do that, you can be the smartest and the brightest and have the best ideas, but you're not going to get anywhere. You can't establish that connection. So you have to have an understanding and a sensitivity to cultural diversity to be able to do that. So back to your original question, I think we all agree that it's pretty important.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was all really good. I wanted to also ask, what are some different careers and pathways you have seen people pursue in international business other than the one you pursued and the ones we have here?
Well, I can just say that I obviously didn't start out as a teacher. I went from international business locally. I don't think the product matters. To me, it was about the skills of working internationally, as you just said, building relationships, being relatable, being trainable, all of that, and being open to another culture. Because I worked from hoist, pulleys, and chains, and then when I lived in Puerto Rico, I worked for Condor Farms, which is a flour importer. I worked for Klockner Penoplast, which is a plastic film company, and I worked for Keds, the shoe company. So I thought the skills transfer to the product. It's more important that you are able to work with people in general. When I came back, I worked for Fisher Price, and that was completely different from anything I had done previously, but I moved from international distribution to international sales and marketing, and I did some international customer service. It's about being able to speak with people. If I can fix the power wheels over the phone in Spanish, trying to figure out the name for players, you can do anything.
Another role would be business development managers. A few of my friends, my brother-in-law, they are in either IT or healthcare or different companies, where they go to customer sites, help them identify problems that they didn't know existed, and then put processes together to help them solve those issues. So that's another thing you can look at internationally.
It's pretty much just limited by your imagination. So imagine doing business with another country. It involves marketing, it involves sales, it involves engineering, it involves legal. So you could go in and be a paralegal or an attorney and have to understand the norms of that country. And somebody answered the first question as far as understanding culture. We look at everything from our point of view, from an American point of view. That's not how the world sees things. So you can do pretty much anything, because marketing, you're going to have to market to their culture, to their norms. And same thing with legal. The contracts have to reflect what that country values. So it's really limited by what you really want to do. Everything's going digital. We started with that before. We just did an inspection. We had to do it over FaceTime on an Apple iPhone, because it was the only way to convince them that the product was acceptable, because the print media with the language and the culture difference didn't get through, the drawings didn't get through, but everyone can see that on video and understand it. And that opens up a whole nother set of opportunities that we didn't have before this pandemic with all the digital technology that you mentioned in your first question.
Sure. A question from the audience. Well, this one's Mr. Turton's, but can someone talk about people with technical skills getting opportunities to travel paid by the company?
I mean, believe it or not, there's a lot of people who don't want to travel. So, you know, the company is often looking for people to go on assignment or to, you know, go on a business trip. And there's people that don't want to do that. So I think companies, they realize that's a cost of doing business, that you have to provide this opportunity for people. And it's part of your development as an employee. So they invest in that and pay for that. And, you know, I went to Germany for 2 years, and it was paid for by my company, and lived there and worked there for 2 years. And, you know, my mother still didn't understand. She was like, why are they paying you to live in Europe for 2 years? You know, she couldn't believe it. But I think most companies these days realize that that's an investment that they have to make in order to establish those relationships internationally. Of course, now travel has been so limited. I think that companies are going to start weighing the options, because there's so many good digital solutions for being able to communicate remotely. When do we really need the face-to-face, and when can we do it digitally to save money? At the same time, nothing's going to replace that face-to-face. You've got to have some of it.
Right.
I think any company that's providing service or installation, certainly there's current restrictions, but at some point there's the need for a variety of functions to be on site, be at those installs, be where the service is needed. So depends on the industry, but there's going to be demand, and once this these COVID issues shake out, there'll be a bit of a new normal, but I think certainly still, I think to Meg's point, there's going to be face-to-face interaction needed to do business.
Tyler, if I could make just a recommendation to you and your co-students, as you go to Geneseo and the other schools you have opportunities to go to, take advantage of the overseas experiences, the travel abroad, the study abroad options, as much as you possibly can, for all the reasons we've shared relative to immersion into the culture, immersion into language, that relationship building, because today's business, as been mentioned, is global. And the best way to get that experience is going to be to get there yourself, both from a low pressure situation, but then as you get into the work world, as we've just said, it's an expectation that you've already been well versed there. So as we look at hiring you for the future, we're going to expect that you'll do some travel, because our customers, our suppliers are globally based. We may need you to go there. We need you to have those experiences. How do you deal with a brand new situation and a brand new language and a brand new culture? And just assume you have those skills. But how do you get those? You take advantage right now in school and see if you can get as broad a background, a broad experience as you can. And one of the great things that I've watched my kids go through is taking advantage of the study abroad options for a summer, 6 weeks, a semester. They've all benefited from it. And that would be my recommendation for you to think about as you go in past your senior year and head off to Geneseo.
Thank you. That's actually part of the degree over at Geneseo. That's one of the semesters. So I was actually looking forward to that. So yeah, that's cool.
Take every bit of opportunity you can and get and seize it, because this is the time to do it.
Cool. Also with students, the last question I wanted to ask was if there are students like me who are considering work-based learning as a senior, what would they need to do to obtain an internship in your company to gain some international experience or get connected with you?
Well, I know.
I know as far as connected, I work with a lot of STEM programs locally in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I always tell them LinkedIn is a good platform to get connected with people you meet all over. Gives them opportunity to ask questions, and a lot of my interns from college do the same thing. They link once they're there, just link in and LinkedIn, get you connections. You can always ask questions through that and keep in contact that way.
I agree totally to that. And start building your LinkedIn profile as soon as you go to college, and keep adding on to it with unique experiences that you had, reports that you did, any community events that you did. Keep building your profile as you go through college.
It may seem inefficient, but rather than go direct, Tyler, right to a company and say, hey, I want a position here, as has been suggested, it becomes more of an indirect of building relationships and linkages and networks. And so LinkedIn is one way, but your family, your friends, your teachers, all of those folks have connections. The key thing, and we mentioned this right at the beginning of this session, was to understand what are your interests, your passions, your drives, and follow those, because those will typically lead you through life, the things that you truly love doing. And when you love doing it, you'll find more and more connections. Those connections will lead you to an international experience, because we are a globally connected society.
We've done the STEM and junior achievement thing as well. I would say get to know some HR managers as well. HR managers will know where the internships are. And the internship's a great way to find out just how passionate you are about something. If you think you want to get into sales and marketing and you do an internship and find out, you know what, it's intriguing, but it's not me, that's a great way to do it before you commit to a career.
Okay.
Well, and good thing is never be afraid of change. Trying, you are going to see what suits you best. And if you don't like it and you're in a short internship, well, you know what you don't want, and you can keep looking for the experiences that you really want to have in life. So never be afraid and just do it.
Okay. We're just about out of time, but if anyone wants to say any closing or anything else, the question that we talked about, anything to wrap up, or that's about it.
Tyler, is there anything that was shared today that you have questions on that you did not expect to hear?
I mean, everything was pretty informative. It was all great. The studying abroad and traveling, that was all very helpful, because I already started doing that here in high school because Mrs. Ziegler and Mrs. Santiago put together these trips and everything with EF Tours. Going on those trips was great. I love going on both. I went to Panama, and then this just recently, this past winter, we went to Spain and France, and those were just great. Awesome. So, I mean, if I can do that again in the future through like college or something, I would love to do that. So.
No, that's great. You're very fortunate to have been afforded those possibilities, and as you can going forward, as many as you can. It's just a great foundation to work from.
Yeah, exactly. Keep doing it, because as I said, I mean, of course, your studies and everything, but traveling and going abroad is going to teach you a lot, and you're going to learn a lot from that, and that's really, really helpful in life. And if I could, your passion, just follow your passion, as Pilar said.
Yeah,
really.
If I could make one last recommendation, put the cell phone down, put the iPad down, engage in direct conversation, ask questions, show an interest in learning, and do that through the natives, through the citizens you meet, through the people you meet, not through the electronic devices. You'll learn so much more.
Totally agree.
Okay. Well, that's about it. So I just wanted to add in here that I would like to thank future industry partners such as Mr. Yoshi from Yoshi Trading Corporation, Japan, and others for watching this panel discussion after recording. Your interest in Alden High School's efforts to connect across the world is appreciated. Please contact Mr. Turton to share ideas to advance our partnership. And I also would like to thank all the panelists on this panel for all your great insight, and I appreciate you guys coming out and spending time. I know it's very valuable, and I'm sure you have other things that you could be doing, but I love that you guys came and talked, and this is just great. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gracias.
Bye.
Gracias.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao,
Bye.
Mr. Turk.
Bye-bye. Good
Have a good
luck.
one.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi. Hi, Thurston. Okay.
Come here.
All right.
Hey, Mr. Turton. Say hi, Mr. Turton.
Hi, Mr. Turton.
You have to close. Bye.
Yeah. You're on mute, Al.
Yeah, I got that. Like Tyler was saying, that mute thing's tricky. I end up clicking it twice because it's a little delay.
That's what was happening.
Tyler, you need to teach him about technology, okay?
Yeah, I will.
Help him out a little.
Tyler, you did a great job. Usually I call the panelists back. Oh, I'm going to stop recording now, actually. Hold on.
All right, Al. I'll let you go, bud. We'll see you.
Okay, see you, Omar. Thanks so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah.